Hey, what's up everybody? It's TheHyphenate here, and today we're going to talk about the Sony a7S III, specifically how I shoot video with the a7S III, what codec and bitrate I use, and what memory card I use for that codec to be used across all the different frame rates. Now, there are a lot of videos on YouTube that break down every single option and combination on the a7S III, but right now we're just going to go into the menu system and I'm going to show you exactly what I use. So here we are on the first page of the menu system, image quality, file format. When shooting 4K, I always use HYPHENATE'S. Now this is an H.265 codec, which allows for more information at a smaller file size. Now older computers will struggle editing video that has H.265. Now one workaround that you can do is that you can create video proxy files on your editing program. So when you're in your editing program, whether it's Adobe or Final Cut or Vegas Pro, create video proxies, work with a lower resolution while you're editing, and then when you're about to export, then go ahead and increase your resolution back to its full quality. Now, I personally have a pretty powerful editing program, and I still will use proxies on my system, and it helps me edit so much more smoothly. All right, now let's go into the movie settings page. Here you can see record frame rate and record setting. First, let's go to record frame rate. So on the frame rate with this codec, you can shoot 24 frames per second, 60 frames per second, or 120 frames per second. For some reason, it doesn't give you the option for 30 frames per second. However, I actually never really shoot in 30 frames per second. Cinematic video and films are in 24 frames per second. So that's the editing timeline that I prefer, and I prefer to export in 24 frames per second. Now, if I want slow motion, then I'll go to 60 frames per second and slow that down to 40%. Or if I want 20% slow motion, I go to 120 frames per second. Now, if you're not really sure on how that works, I do have another video on this channel that explains slowing down higher frame rates to a 24 frames per second timeline. For now, we'll stick with 24 frames per second. Now we're gonna go to record setting. Here's where you can actually choose the bit rate. Now I'm not gonna break down every single difference between the different megabits, the 420 versus 422, but for the professional work that I do, 420 10-bit is perfectly fine and gives me a lot of flexibility. And this is also very workable with a lot of computers. 422 tends to have a lot of issues with even modern computers. Now let's back out again and go back to the record frame rate. Now if we go to 120p and select that, if we go to record setting, you'll see here that obviously the file size is going to be different. So here you have between 200 megabits per second and 280 megabits per second. Again, I don't use 422, so I use 420. 200 megabits per second is perfectly fine and gives you a lot of flexibility without sacrificing quality. So just a quick recap, for all of my professional work, I use HYPHENATE'S as the file format, and I make sure that no matter what frame rate I'm using, I do 420 10-bit. Now, when it comes to the memory card that I use the Sony UHS-2 V60 memory cards. This memory card is rated to handle any of the frame rates with the codec that I use. The HYPHENATE'S 420 10-bit at any frame rate all the way up to 4K 120. Now, you don't need the very expensive CF Express cards in order to shoot 4K 120 with the codec and bitrate that I use. And I have two of them, and I actually have my a7S III set to dual recording. So I always have the exact same copy on both memory cards. That way, if I have an issue with one memory card failing or having any issues, I can pull from the second memory card. So there you guys have it. That's the codec, bitrate, and the memory card that I use for all my professional video work with the Sony a7S III. If you're interested in getting the a7S III, the memory card that I use, or any of the other accessories that I like to use when I shoot, I do have links in the description where you can purchase them from either B&H Photo or Amazon. It doesn't change the price that you get it at, but it does help this channel. Please make sure to drop a like on this video, drop a comment below if you have any questions, and please make sure to subscribe. I have a lot more videos coming soon. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.